It was a very much community sort of thing for the bands round us, wasn't it, Gary?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
We all got on. We were all mates. There wasn't
right.
that. I mean, Black Rose at the time were doing pretty well because they'd had an album out. But for guys, for Rose and that, we were just sort of mates. And you know, Vince. I remember we became good. You know, I became good friends with Vince in the UK. And there was a sort of a competitiveness. You know, there was a little bit of it.
There was, yeah.
But it was healthy. And it was like you up the game a little bit.
I think that makes every scene. I mean, if you look at the new wave of British heavy metal, I bet Priest and Praying Mantis and those guys were chasing each other. Early Maiden, you know, Priest were way before Maiden, but then you've got Bay Area bands, Exodus, Testament. They were all chasing each other. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris, and Gary, you'll appreciate this. Where's my friend from Kuni, Tenaro? So, Konrad, word has it that you stormed across from Pretoria to Joburg and you told Razor that you are going to take heavy metal to a new level. Remember that old rumor that went around?
Well, I most probably could have said anything. I was arrogant enough in those days to do shit like that. So, and like I said, if I did offend anybody in those days, look, I'm sorry, dudes, but that's...
I'm winding you up, dude, because that's the fever and the passion it was all about back in the day, man. I just thought I'd...
it was... The one thing that I feel very strong about is I think the one thing that we all have in common is that because we didn't have the entertainment that the overseas kids have, we just, when we played with everything from here that we had.
With conviction.
Yeah, it's just because that's all you had, and it was like the only escape that you had from that mad fucking South Africa that we lived in.
Yeah, that's what we got from all of these guys in here, from Gary, from Chris, from Stretch, from Vincent, from everybody, man. It was like
energy.
No matter how big the venue was or how small it was, if there were 10 people or 100 people, honestly, man, they played every time they played was with fucking balls as hard as they fucking could, man. And it was...
We used to love it.
It was like being in an international gig every show.
100%.
Yeah.
It was definitely the case. Even when our second wave band started, I remember that too. It's like when we played at the Master Mariners Club in Cape Town in 1986. I mean, I think there were about 5 people there, but we played balls to the wall the entire show.
Yeah,
and we grew the fucking audience like you guys had to do.
There it comes.
Oh,
Vass, take note. Look, Vass is going to buy up all your collections. You guys can sell your underwear to Vass in 5 years from now.
Oh, fuck. Hold on. Gaskill's pulling out his mouth. What's that?
Also, great album. Great album.
The first time I met Chris was in Pretoria. He was coming to check out the gig of, I think, I can't remember which band. We were not playing, but he was there. And then we started talking, and he was talking like, yeah, I'm playing in Tyrant. Oh, you playing in Osiris. And it was like, it was funny, but it was a little bit of a competition, although, yeah, we were young kids. But that's just the way it was, because there was not so much around. So you had to compete with each other to get, I don't know, exposure or whatever. But we always appreciated each other, I think.
Sorry, Dean, say again?
I said every time we saw these guys play, the bar would get raised higher. Like every gig, the bar would go up. You know what I mean? That's the guys play at such a high level.
That's healthy rivalism. What do you call it?
Do you know what's amazing about this whole conversation is that Dean and I have our own view of what happened to the South African metal scene over the years. Is that it's almost it's eaten itself from the inside out. It became a point of no one got to a point that really didn't want to support each other, and it was bitter, and you'd slag each other off, which is fine. Competition is good, and that's fine. But I mean, you've got to still stand up and support the scene, which Dean and I, we've discussed it at length of loads of bottles of Jack Daniels and shit. But back in the day, that watching you guys as we grew up, there was a fucking unity. Like, it was competition. You may not have almost liked that band too much, but you still supported the vibe. But as time progressed, it's become the downfall of South African metal over years to come, is that the bands don't support each other. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm old.
I've got a very different take on this, and I always found the whole metal scene fascinating. I'm an old punk, and in all the years that I was involved in punk, and I'm still a punk, really, I always found it extremely fascinating how the metal bands are so competitive. I guess that's the word. We punk bands, we just supported each other, and we just, we worked the underground scene. And when I got into metal, when VOD crossed into metal from 86 to 89 or whatever, the whole crossover scene, bands like Toxic Socks at that time, So I don't really understand this competitiveness shit. It's like, for me,
Well,
it's like a fucking...
I agree with Mark, because it didn't happen with these guys. With Gary,
We didn't have that competitiveness. We were mates.
We were mates.
and if one band was playing and the other band happened to be there that night just watching, there was none of that bullshit like we saw later on in the scene. It was full support.
I don't think it was as much with your era of music. I think it came later.
I mean, when the news was going, touring, whatever, we played a lot with the Asylum Kids and other groups that were around at the time, the Gents from Durban, what have you. And it was like everybody went and did their set, and everybody had their own take on what they were doing. And I didn't find any kind of backstabbing or anything going on in that scene at that time.
I find him. I can see. If I could butt in, because
he's out of the pub again.
Yeah, I'm out now. Yeah. I think what happened was, because we used to meet at the music shop on Saturday morning, us Black Rose, all the musos would meet at the music shop, and then we'd go rehearse, and we all rehearsed in this building. And then, so to me, when we were in those metal days, no, I didn't get any. All right, we were competitive, and there was Dog Detachment, I think, were around and all that. So there were some other bands, but I just found that meeting at the music shop, it was a meeting place, and musos would come play, and they'd practice all the fucking cover songs and play it in the music shop. So, yeah, I thought there was quite a nice Joburg metal little niche there that between me and Tyrant and Unchained, they all became. See what I mean? But yeah, it was a nice vibe Saturday morning at the music shop.
Neil Fox's Acme Music.
Acme Music, that's the one. Yeah. But what was Neil Fox's shop before Acme? The
Music Masters.
Music Masters. That's where we used to go.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something I recently saw on the SA Heavy Metal Facebook page. So somebody posted up a picture of Razor there, okay? Now, Razor, you guys that were there will know this. If you looked at Razor, you'd say it's a glam band, because we used to go to check out the Kerrang, see what the overseas bands were doing, and that was what we went for, But if you heard the band, we were never a glam band. I mean, we did Maiden, we did Priest, we did Dio, we did all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so somebody posted a picture up of Razor.
Gents, excuse me just for a minute.
And the guy that commented said, "Fuck, it's amazing how far we've come." And I just thought to myself, how can you say that having never even heard the band? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of pissed me off big time.
And Gary, in those days, we didn't have the opportunities to record. You couldn't do it. You couldn't just go out and record something. You had a little fucking cassette tape, and that's what you had. That's what you could record on. You didn't have money to go and record. I remember we did a demo with Tyrant. It's lost in time somewhere. We didn't have the opportunity, and I think we had some guy that someone knew, and he lived on a farm, and he had this reel-to-reel, and he said, "I'll do you a demo." It's lost in time somewhere. I've got no idea. But that was about it. That's all he had. And he did it cheap. I mean, Gary, Razor recorded a single, also lost somewhere along the line. But it wasn't a metal tune, really. It was quite a kind of commercial rock kind of tune.
I recall producing a couple of tracks at Lee Pearson's place with you, Gary.
That was
Pentagon.
Vigilante.
Wow. Where's that stuff? I'll collect the shit. Where is it, guys?
I don't know. Well, ask Gary.
Whoa! You guys just mentioned a band. You guys just mentioned a band now that was part of that original list that I actually have nothing about tonight. It's Pentagon.
Gary.
Yeah, Pentagon was probably my last metal band that I was in.
And that was at Lee's studio. You recorded that,
Yeah.
At least, I remember it down at Commissioner Street, wasn't it?
No, that was before because that band was called Vigilante. That was myself and Nip and Richard Detroit.
Yes, you and Nip, I remember, I was there.
Roger DeToy.
Yeah. And that was the band that eventually became Montreux after I left.
Yeah, there's the other band. Gary, you guys need to talk about this because there's very little information. Look, I have searched and I'm fucking good at finding information, but I have found absolutely nothing on Montreux.
No, Montreux. Paul Houston. I think Paul Houston was in the band.
Very little.
I know Paul Houston.
I mean, the only recording that I did was with First Hand. That was with Midnight Flyer when he was working with the Asylum Kids, that place in Berea. And obviously, we weren't heavy metal; we were original music. But that's the only recording I ever did in those days. Yeah, there was nothing around.
So I have a quick question for Gary. Gary, remember when you had like a rehearsal room come club that it was down by the Market Theatre? What band were you? Was that with? And was that with Montreux or was it with
that was Vigilante.
Oh, that's it.
It was myself and Roger. And then
I remember Roger.
I was bass and vocals in that band. And then Nipper wanted to bring in a singer. He wanted to bring in Sergio from Tyrant and Lynx. And I wasn't into it, so I left and formed Pentagon.
Right.
What was Pentagon about? Was it the name Pentagon? I didn't hear. I've never heard Pentagon, but I would love to hear it. But I would think it would be kind of like Osiris stuff, like Venomish stuff.
No, Yuri. It was that Yuri Serpentine on guitar, but it was stuff. Yeah.
No, it was just straight classic metal. Some Priest, some Maiden, and some other stuff like Gary Moore, stuff like that.
Pentagon without Yuri was basically what you call stretch.
Correct.
The Irish club.
Yeah.
Some people have commented on the original video where we sort of launched this whole thing.
Yeah.
And when I started doing my research and all that stuff into the bands, I asked the group about bands like Fallout. Look, I heard the name Fallout. And then some guy mentioned the other night and he got quite pissed off on the YouTube channel. He said, I'm done with you guys if you guys don't mention a band called Freedom's Children.
That was the 60s. No, they were much earlier.
That was much more psychedelic prog stuff. So it's not really metal.
Yeah, so we responded. I said, like, this channel, it's about metal.
It's about metal.
1960.
They should have been massively international prog rock band ever in this world. Freedom Children, but they are not fucking nowhere near that.
They're not metal.
Julian Laxton.
The closest to that genre that we floated was, you guys mentioned, my boy Stretch mentioned Savion drums was, let me tell you, for my 10 pence worth, and I know South African music, I collect the shit, was the John Bonham of South African drumming. Yeah. That's it.
Sorry, can I just throw another spanner of the bands? Because even before them, the other band that was really great, and I think that was one of the first rock shows I've ever seen, and they played for like 2 minutes and they were thrown out of Brea Park, was a band called Hawk.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I've got all the albums, But I mean, Cooney, I love it, but I
don't think that's heavy metal. I mean, it's
it's prog rock. I mean, that's the thing. They went to London, they got a deal, they didn't get a deal. So the line is drawn at Suck, and Dean brought that up. When Suck brought the album, they were technically the fucking pioneers when they did that album. From there, it's now what's happening now.
End of story. That's fucking when metal started. I agree with that. All those bands, that was all underground, and they call it the heavy whatever, man.
Yeah, Band of Gypsy, they were great. I mean, they were awesome. There was underground stuff. They led up to what became metal. But the Gaskills, the fucking Simpsons, the Gary Walkers, all the boys on here, they just fucking brought that whole different vibe. They just took it to another level. So
heavy metal, bro.
I'm getting really passionate about this because I get angry when people mix the fucking mix and mash.
Yeah, I understand.
Can I just throw a spanner in the works? Because I know during that phase with all the walkers, the fucking legends on this channel, and then the puss from Pretoria. Sorry, we've got to edit that. The dude from Pretoria who came down to the Golden Banana and with his band called Aragorn and absolutely blew the Golden Banana's roof off with one of the most talented guitarists ever, John Buckley. Do you remember those days with Golden Banana, with Aragorn, which was during that phase, was just incredible?
I can say one thing. I played with John Buckley in Storm, even before.
Wow! And am I right? What a guitarist, say, Vince.
I haven't heard that, man.
I've still got tapes of him down here. I think there are 2 demos. Paul, the vocalist, then I thought he sucked. I really did. But apparently afterwards, and I heard some stuff from him because he moved to California, I think. He became a fucking
Paul Van Rensburg. Yeah, Paul Van Rensburg, yeah.
Exactly. And I heard I think he's playing, I forgot the band's name, but I can always share it in the link. Amazing. He became an amazing vocalist to me. So, yeah, I wrote lots of songs with John Buckley before he died, for my new band, Ten Rogue, which were really going down great here and in the United States too.
Killer band, man.
So I've got the biggest respect for John Buckley. He wasn't just a great guitarist, he was a great songwriter, he was a great producer, he wrote commercials for Coca-Cola. Yeah, unfortunately he died. A good friend of mine.
I'll bring to John, he was a great guy.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
We're talking about a lot.
He was a natural talent.
So many people have died, though. You know, Mark, Vince. When you look back at it, there's so many guys that have passed. Yeah, pretty heavy shit, man.
Lots of them.
Yeah.
Did at that time? Can you remember? You guys all lived in Cape Town. I grew up in the 70s and stuff like that. So we had the Springbok Records. And I mean, they used to have bands like AC/DC on there, but none of those recordings were ever the real band. It was cover musicians like Jethro Boutro and all these guys who worked for the SABC would actually record those songs. Were any of you guys ever involved in recording stuff for those Springbok David Gresham records?
So my claim to fame was I worked with the SABC. So I don't know if you guys know Ever Dominic well. He does quite a bit of like the sound work for a lot of the groups big groups in South Africa now and so on. But so Ever did all the recordings for what's his name? What's Bobby's surname?
Bobby Angel, Bobby Lowe,
Jethro Buto. They're like a whole little clique that used to Danny Lalouette. They used to do like all the TV radio shows, and they also did a whole lot of the Springbok radio, David Gresham, like the top 20 in those days.
Yeah.
A lot of the cover. Well, they did basically the covers, and some of them they did actually pretty damn good.
Mel Burtis, I think he was also involved. Yeah.
No, I know Mel very well. Mel and I we were groot chomme. Yeah, we sort of gone our separate ways over the years and so on. But I mean, I used to jam with Mel and Dozy and those acts, and we'd get snotters before Afrikaans was a thing, and then just as a grap, we would sing Oor Rypert and so on. We'd love it. And then they did it like 7 years later, and they became superstars.
So none of these of the original founding bands, you guys were never approached by the SABC at that time to record covers of like.
Can I tell you what I was? I'll tell you what I did do. I just don't have the video clip anymore. But there was one of the producers, Eckhart. Eckhart, yeah, he played sax on Inkululeko.
Becky was my guitar teacher for a minute.
Okay, but now, so he came to me one day and he said, you know what, Konrad, I'm going to do a Willy Varley program. And I said, yes. He says, I want you to be Polky Painapple.
No way. Well, Willy Varley. Fucking Willy Varley.
Yeah, Willy Varley. I did the song.
Jesus Christ, I remember that.
Pain.
Yes, no ways.
Willy Varley rondom Trali.
So I did a Willy Varley show.
Yeah, no way. Fuck me. But talking about the SABC, because Nipper, myself, Clive Howard, and my brother, we played in that first hand band. That was the first band that we were in. And we were invited to the SABC to do a fucking recording there. Seriously, I mean, I don't know why or whatever, I can't remember, but we went in the studio and recorded 3 songs with first fucking hand in the proper SABC, man. It was fucking blown away, really. We were so young, though. But yeah, I don't know how that came about. Maybe they wanted to practice doing a live band, or I don't know. But anyway, because there was also Mark Burdett was in that band, Bicycle Thieves or something, and they were on the telly. They did a video of them as well. Mark Burdett and the Flash Harry.
Flash Harry, what a great band.
Yeah.
Come on, Chris is going to go and see if he's got the vinyl. Come on, Chris.
I'll tell you.
No way, you got the vinyl. My brother. Oh, nice one. Oh, yeah.
I've had like a liter of mezcal here, but I think we're sort of steering away from the metal story and we're getting into like
very much. Yeah, that's me fucking changed.
We were talking about sleeping with David Gresham from Pop Shop. So I'm gonna take control. So I am proudly to say that I have my mate Clive Pearson. I'm wearing his fucking t-shirt. Yeah,
I love it, mate. I love it.
Isolation Angels.
Nice.
There we go. South African boy who's gone over there and done a fucking join in the band and they fucking rock. So
cheers, China.
Come on, Chris. Yeah. Come on, Chris. Talk about Belladonna. I've got all this stuff. I mean, come on. Talk about
Belladonna. We got it. By the way,
talk about what you guys have done since you've left South Africa. Come on.
Yeah. Before you do that, I've got to punt our new album, Hounds of Hell, coming out soon. New album, Desolation Angels. Right, come on. Hounds of Hell. Out soon. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Looking forward to Clive.
Yeah. I thought I've got to get one in there, man. I
think mine's the easiest. So I'm retired. How's that? I drink wine, I garden, and I take my dogs for a walk.
Oh man, children, what a pleasure.
Not a bad thing.
But if anybody wants to do like a thing, I'm happy to like.
Oh fuck yeah!
If we're recording together, I would love it.
That would be amazing.
Konrad, don't fucking tempt me, my bro.
Yeah, but you've just done your recording. You guys are doing another one with them.
Let's do it. I'll do it.
Okay, here's a little thing.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh my fuck.
Danger
Smith. Oh my lord.
Yeah, check that out.
I've listened to it. Great stuff.
Yeah, so good stuff there, Dean.
Thank you. Konrad and Vincent. If Konrad is retired, and Vincent, I believe you're not retired, did he fucking scale all the money from Osiris?
I did.
Great.
I did. I wrote the contract all in my favor. I was the older of the lot, so I knew what was going on.
Dean, I can tell you one thing. Osiris made me no money. King Vane made me no money. There was another band I played for.
None of us ever made
made me no money. I brought out one thing on the radio for myself, and that made me €2,000. And then all of a sudden I started writing music for somebody else that gave me €2,500. And now I'm playing for with my own band, Tin Rogue, and we are getting played everywhere, and it's making me maybe €300. Decide for yourself. What's the most important thing, or what's interesting to do in music? Not your own thing. Write for somebody else.
For sure. I'm really interested in the Joburg scene at that time. I want to hear about the Golden Banana. I want to hear about who was the fucking owner of the Golden Banana. I'm like, I know Roland Raker from Club Image and those guys. How you guys got in there? You know, like,
I can probably tell you the reasons of the Golden Banana, because when we lived in Hillbrow in 1980 with this Boyd and Nexus and Derny, we were playing in this band, we rehearsed in that Golden Banana before it was even the fucking Golden. It was just the Winston Joy Hotel, and we knew the owner. And he put us downstairs, and we rehearsed in that because we lived in the high-rise blocks opposite in 1981.
Yeah.
We lived in high-rise, and Ernie, I think he knew the owner of the hotel or the guy of the hotel, and we rehearsed in the Winston Joy, and then it became the fucking. Yeah, then it got latched on, and Bella and Tyrant and Nipper and Chris, they created, when I come back from London, they were now there as playing Tyrant and running the door and shit. Nipper, Chris, Tony Granger, all those bands. So
I think Razor did it first, I think.
And then
Razor did it. But it was...
First band in there.
Yeah, we were
First
the
band
first...
in Black Rose.
Yeah.
Aragorn played the GB. Sorry.
So yeah, that's how it started as a venue, probably because we relivened it up just rehearsing there, and a couple of other bands I think might have started rehearsing. So anyway, I just wanted to put that in there just to let you know.
Well, it was obviously owned by some Indians.
Yep.
I mean,
Eventually,
so you guys just went there and sort of drinking beers there in the fucking morning and said, "Hey, can we practice here? Can we?"
That's right. Yeah. And he came and we went down into this basement area, and then we rehearsed there for a while. But that was with Ernie, and I'm sure Ernie knew. Do you know he was a very good singer, coloured dude, Ernie, excellent singer. And he was only with us for a few months, and he got us there. And that's the origins of the fucking Winston Joy Hotel as a music venue, I think. Heavy metal venue.
I can tell you when Aragorn played there, it was owned by Indian guys.
Yes.
And he actually had a printing business, this guy, and because he printed the Aragorn T-shirts.
Oh, right.
It's quite funny because then he actually said he owned us.
Right.
Okay, somebody's owning us, but it was cool. I mean, at least we got T-shirts for free.
Yeah.
Which was fun.
Funny enough, with that band, that first-hand band we played in, they must have heard of something, and we got invited to play at this party, right? And we didn't realise it, but it was obviously a gay party. And we've never made so much money on one gig in our life from what we got paid at that private party with the gay guys, you know what I mean? Basically. Talking about making no money ever from music. That was the only time we made
harder than your boyfriend in the morning.
Anyway, guys, so for me, I coming from the punk ethos in the early 80s, is that you got to grow your own scene. And if you haven't got places to play, venues, I mean, the venues and the owners of those venues had a large part in our lives. Like you just touched on the Golden Banana, etc. Without those venues, I mean, where the fuck would we play? I mean, where would you actually play your music? So for me, that's always a very interesting part of the whole metal or punk scenes is it's like the vibe of Hillbrow at that time, you know, like you guys had Down Records and you had all those, you know, we as Cape Townians used to travel up from, by the time we got to Joburg, when I went to the first places in Joburg, like Chelsea Underground and the earlier roller and raker clubs like Subjects or Subways or whatever those places was called.
DV8.
Yeah, and Club LSD and Club, but you know, and for me, a big part of this interview thing, of this history thing, is I'm gonna get hold of Roland Raker and I want to interview him because he was the first Joburg person who paid even in the 80s for VOD to travel all the way up to Johannesburg and put us up and fucking play gigs there. I mean,
well, just to interject quickly, when he's talking about growing your own scene, I remember a point in time in Joburg when the venues weren't happening, and Gary fucking he basically created his own. It was a rehearsal room come club that you had at the market, Gary.
Yeah.
And he carried the scene on for us, man.
I think you just getting one spot, the Dirt Box. It was called the Dirt Box.
Yes.
That's where all the punks used to hang out. And I remember when we used to play from the Winston Joy Hotel, from the Golden Banana or whatever. in the early hours, actually, when the Golden Banana was finished, we still used to pull around to the dirt box because either way there would be a good fight or there were nice chicks. I remember that.
Yeah,
and that was a scene.
yeah.
And then the dirt box was the punk scene.
So did the Irish club happen obviously after the Golden Banana, or
Yeah, it did.
And
the
then-
Irish club was actually, I was doing a day job. I used to work for American Express, and my boss at the time was like on the managing board of the Irish club, and she knew I was in a band. So she said, "Oh, we're looking for an act on Friday and Saturday nights. Do you want to come and do it?" So I said, "Yeah, well, I don't think you're like Irish dudes are gonna like what we play. You know what I mean?" So she says, "No, the place is normally quite empty, and they're just looking for something to make some turnover. So would you be interested?" So I said, "Cool." So she says, "But you'll have to come up and do an audition." So I said, "Okay." So I brought the band in there on like a Saturday afternoon. The place is empty. I mean, you guys that have been there know it's like kind of a sparse place in any way. So the place is empty. There's no stage. There's like these 5 plastic seats set out in a semicircle with these old toadies like sitting there. So anyway, we come in and we set up. So I say to the guys, we better play something kind of a little bit more accessible, So we decided we did a Gary Moore song, Run for Cover. Okay. So anyway, we play the tune, and these people just sit there and they don't move, and they're like checking us out. End the song, and they all jump up and they start applauding. I don't know, maybe because it was Gary Moore and he's Irish, I don't know. So that's how we got the gig. That's how it started.
So the Irish club was basically just like a pub. I mean, it was just a pub.
It was a room.
Yeah, it was an empty room with
Underground room,
all
yeah.
on the side. Yeah.
Gary, you also had another club. It was sort of halfway between Joburg and Hillbrow. It was.
I did, yeah. That's what Stresh was talking about earlier. So I started this club. We called it Metal Asylum.
That's it.
But it only ran for like 2 months. And then one night there were some dudes that came in from the East Rand, I think from Edenvale. And they caused some cuck. They went around and fucking broke windows and shit. So the dude cancelled our lease, and that was the end of it,
Wow.
Yeah.
Greg, the other guy you can maybe talk to, club owner-wise, and I think Mark will know them better because that was sort of after the Aragorn days. It's more with Dean and Mark and them when they all played. Is a guy called Lawrence Brown. Because he had a club in Randburg where Dean and them all played.
The torture chamber? The torture
And
chamber.
Yuri as well, tattoos.
Tattoos,
Yeah.
Yeah. And just
I can get you in touch with Lawrence. Lawrence and I are good mates. So.
I thought Yuri owned that place, not Yuri. Okay.
Yeah.
Yuri owned tattoos, yeah.
Yuri, Michael Serpentine's brother?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Gary, did any of you original founders of SA Metal play at any of the Roland Raker places like Club LSD or I mean, you had a couple of clubs in Joburg at that time. I think that sort of came around about 1988, around there, or
The Rock Club, Skulk's surname was?
That was afterwards. That was after. I think most of the original guys were already in the UK by then.
Yeah. Been gone a long time.
Yeah.
And Aragorn, Odyssey, all those bands played the Rock Club, Villains, all those places.
Yeah.
So as a Joburg band at that time in the 84, 85, 86, I mean, so basically where you guys were put on for like 3 months at the Golden Banana as like residency sort of type gigs or in and I mean, what are other places like maybe like halls and stuff like that? I mean,
we did
what other options were there for you guys to play? I mean, where would you play?
We did a few. We had a few different sort of options, and I remember we played a gig in Vanderbilt Park, and it was all the expats who worked in the mining industry, and they had like a clubhouse, all the bikers, and we'd go down to Vanderbilt Park, and we'd go play there and set up and do our gig, and have to drive back afterwards. There's a few biker Hells Angels clubs, but there was nothing basically. Unless you wanted to go down the route of having to do early days of Black Rose and playing top 40 hits.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do. We just wanted to be metal.
So Vincent, at that time, were you guys, I mean, how often were you guys playing? Like sort of once a week or once a month? Or what was the sort of...
Well, I think the only band, I think, which really had the resonance was Razor. They played at the Wind and Joy Hotel. And that's where we went as Pretorians. We went there because that was the hard rock happening club, you know, and it was every week they played there. So they really had a resonance. I don't know about the rest. Maybe Chris, with Unchained too, and Osiris must probably also, when they were in Cape Town, they played there. Maybe also resonance. Konrad will confirm that. But for the rest, there was not so much. Not for the rock and metal. There was not really resonance available. We had bands like. Konrad, help me out on this with Alistair Coakley that played
Hotline.
Hotline, yeah. What was the club called? The Grand Central in Pretoria. Those were resonance bands, but hard rocking or metal bands, I don't think there were a lot of them.
There was nothing but there. There was the Gold Banana. We basically make our own scene.
Right. I know Black Rose had a residency for a while as well. So it was like 3 months, and you guys took the door?
No, it wasn't quite that. It wasn't quite 3 months. It was like you do 2 to 4 weeks maybe, and you go there and play, and you get the people in, and then we would have a chance doing it. So Razor would do it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we would go there and we would play for 2 weeks. And do it, and you take the door. We never made any money, and we just seemed to like just swap over. Black Rose were before us, but they sort of moved on to England by that time. So it was just like Razor and us. We just took it over for like a couple of weekends. It wasn't like a 3-month residency. We never made any money. It wasn't about the money. It was about actually getting all the bangers together, and the guys came round and they'd have their battle jackets on. We didn't call them battle jackets in those days.
Yeah.
And the jackets on, and he's got a maiden patch, he's got sacks, and he's got this and that.
Colours. That's it.
You just met up with the guys. They were like your friends, you know. I remember a guy called Howard Schenker, the metal detector or whatever, you know, and there's all these dudes that you sort of used to see every week.
Howard Schenker, jeez, I forgot about him. Damn, he was like...
I don't know if you knew about this, Chris, but when you guys used to play, what we used to do, all the bangers, we had this list with everybody's name on it. And at the end of the shows, like Marin, he made the list.
I know Marin, yeah.
And then every Friday, whoever had the list in their possession would call all the people on the list and let them know where the next gig is. And then after that gig, it would get passed to another guy. And that's how it went.
And that's how it grew. It was, there's no mobile phones. It was no. That's how it grew. So you grow that. It's word of mouth. And it was basically, so Marin, he knew a lot of people. We had, you know, my mate Nick Corns, there's Paul Houston, all these people. They're all fans, but they all started to decide, they could play in a band as well.
Yeah.
Gary, as you know, Paul Houston, you played in a band with him. Nipper, we were all sort of, we knew each other.
Yeah.
It was such a small sort of little clique of people. And then we had all the Pretoria people come, which was great. All the Pretorians coming.
I've heard this word nipper a few times tonight. So tell me about nipper.
Chris knows him better than me.
Nipper. Mark Palm. I grew up with him. 14 years old, 15 years old. We bought our first guitars together. We just went and played, and we did all this, and we joined bands together. And we were back together. And he's still around, and he's just one of those guys. We just...
Good guitar player.
Eh?
Good guitar player.
He was,
total nutcase, very rock and roll, you know.
Yeah. I remember the first day we went to go see Black Rose, and it wasn't at the Golden Banana, it was somewhere in Hillbrow somewhere. Gary, you went in there, something Mark Proctor, one of his first gigs.
Yeah.
I remember the club, and Nipper was there with me, and there was a bit of a kerfuffle, and Nipper got involved. You know, there was always something going on. It's such a close-knit sort of community. So, you know, we lost touch a bit, but I spoke to him a little while ago. He's still there. The guy that you mentioned at commenting was a guy called Phil Evans. And he took some of Unchained. And he's still around, and he was just one of the headbangers, but we were all mates. You'd go out, you'd have, at my place, people would come around to my house, my parents, at my mother's house, and we'd have a barbecue, wouldn't we? A braai, as you call it. We'd have like 40 people there, wouldn't we, Gary? On a whatever, and everyone would bring their own cassettes and think, okay, I've got Ride the Lightning. Let's put Ride the Lightning on. And no one had heard it. And then so, can I tape that from you? And then someone would tape it. And you couldn't afford the records. So you'd have your cassette player, and you do like tape to tape.
TDKs, mate.
You know, Ride the Lightning is still one of my favourite records of all time. And I still remember when I first heard it, and it was just like, this blew my mind. This is like, okay, we've moved on from Quiet Riot and Motley Crue and stuff like that. We've got a little bit heavier now.
How many bands do you guys know of mates and buddies who started bands? They never sort of actually got played at that time that you guys were the main 8 bands like Unchained and Lynx and Montreux and all that. Were there any other bands around at a time that you guys knew about that were sort of hoping to play live or record something at that time?
Basically, it was like the punk movement. Anyone could play an instrument. They could see us doing it. So they would go like, there's a band called Viper. Remember them, Gary?
Vaguely, yeah.
There were 3 brothers.
I remember Viper.
And there were 3 brothers. And they used to come around.
Vicker's band.
And they did it. They started playing. So I think it's just like that. It's the whole thing that if you can do it, we can do it. It's very much of a punk ethos. I grew up on I grew up on the Sex Pistols. I still love punk. And that whole ethos of the heavy metal in our time was anyone could do it.
I know in the second wave interviews they asked Dean and Bryn from Odyssey if they ever played in Cape Town and stuff like that. No, look, I know for a fact now, I've learned now that Osiris was actually based in Cape Town for a while, which is like news to me. I mean, it's something I'm going to really explore.
I never knew that.
So did any of you guys know of any bands outside of Joburg at the time, like in Durban or in Eastern Cape? Like Zister came later, I know, they came later. And in Cape Town, did you guys know of any equivalent music scene happening at that time in metal?
Not really. No. I mean, we used to hear about a band from Durban called Viking, but I think that was about it that I heard of anyway.
Yeah,
there was no social media. There was no way to kind of connect.
Gary, you played. I think when it was the band you said you had when before Pentagon.
Yeah.
What was the band called again?
Vigilante.
I think Vigilante and Viking played in my lounge in Rosettenville, bro. Because the one night we came to your club and for some reason we couldn't play that night. The club got closed, and you guys came and played in my lounge with Viking.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Fucking charged people at the door and everything, bro. It's just classic.
Your fucking house.
Yeah, in my house, in my lounge, bro. Well, it was my mom's house, not my house, but yeah.
So you were from the south. You were rough, mate.
The neighbours wouldn't come near us.
Yeah, we were from the north. You know, we were like the posh boys, basically. You know, you guys from Rosettenville were like dangerous. You know what I mean?
Oh, bro, it was the best fucking times of my life.
So none of the bands like Tyrant or Black Rose. I know Black Rose played in PE. They had a residency there for a while, I believe.
Yeah,
that's right.
So none of you guys actually played outside of Joburg at that time?
No, because we all broke up and went to the UK. Half of us.
Yeah, you must also realize that we are talking about pre-social media phase.
Yeah, for sure.
The smartphone phase. So, in other words, the only thing we heard about was bands in our own city, or if we went out in Joburg, like me and the boys did, we knew about Razor, and we knew about Unchained, and we knew about other bands, but we didn't know what was going on in Cape Town or in Durban, because it was an underground. And it was
absolutely. Absolutely.
Chris, when you went to England, is that after all of the Unchained? Is that when you formed Belladonna?
Yeah, so Unchained, Gary and I, we got the band. We did it because Gary came back from England and he said, like, what the fuck am I going to do? You know, I've come back. They've sent me back and I'm a bass player. Gary's a bass player. What do we do? So Gary sang. And we just formed this band very quickly. And we just had a great time doing it. We just knew it's short-lived, but we did it. And then after that, I went to the UK. It was always in the cards I was going to the UK. I had no choice.
Okay.
I mean, in Unchained, we called ourselves the drunkest band in the world, and we fucking lived up to that title.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Fucking, we couldn't keep up to you guys, bro.
No, it was just great fun. I mean, we must have learned about 20, 30 songs within about 2 weeks, and we did Wasp, we did all the usuals.
Kill by Death, Motorhead, Kill by Death.
That's right, yeah.
I remember that.
We wrote our own songs just in a quick, period of time. We wrote our own songs.
Greg, I need to catch up with you about the SABC sometime. I'm still trying.
I've got it planned, my bro. I'm going to put you and Francois Blom.
Francois, sorry, that's who I'm thinking of.
I'm going to put you all in one fucking meeting together, bro. We can talk some fuck about that.
Thank you.
Love you, my bro.
See you. Cheers, man.
Respect. Respect. I was going to ask when you, because we came a bit later, I guess, when VOD fucked off to London too, and it was kind of a traumatic experience at that time to do that. But I mean, I also when I got there, I mean, my dream was to play at the Marquee and all those places, and unfortunately for me, the Marquee Club closed down a few months before we arrived in London. So we did the underground scene in London. We ended up playing in some great clubs like Astoria and Bradford Rio and all these some of the big clubs later, but it was a fucking it was quite a mind-blowing experience, because obviously at that time, I guess in your guys' times too, you guys were the pinnacle of metal at that time, and at time we left VOD, we could go to any club in South Africa anywhere and fill the club out, but we couldn't go any further. So we went to London, and when we got to London, it was kind of a humbling experience, because now suddenly we were fucking huge in South Africa, but nobody in London knows who the fuck VOD is. So it was. I mean, we played with the Blues Brews. We played with fucking, I don't know, some small little pubs in London and all that stuff. It was kind of scary. I would say it was kind of scary, because going from being the top in South Africa at that time and then going to London is like you just one of the fucking small fish. How did it feel for you guys when you guys took Black Rose and all these bands and you guys went to London? I mean, how did you make an imprint? I mean, how did you go about making an imprint there? I mean, how did you feel about it?
I can't really talk for Black Rose because there's no one here from the band apart from Gary, but he wasn't in that band at the time who went over there. But they struggled. Of course they did. And it didn't last very long because it was like small fish, big pond. So you go over there and, okay, this is tough. You can't do it. So inevitably bands split up, which what happened with Black Rose. They split up and they splintered into two separate bands. And I think Carl joined up with Vince and Rolf joined up with Ian, and they had two separate bands. Carl and Vince had a band called Bad English, and they did gigs around locally, and the other members had a band called Sterling, and they did their own thing. And I think they played the Marquee, I think, and I think Carl and that played with a band called Grand Slam. Which
I know about that band. I've heard of Grand Slam, yeah.
So, you know, they had a little bit of sort of stuff, but there's just so many bands over there, so many clubs. You just don't know, and it's just eventually we all sort of joined together, and Carl and I played in the band, and Vince played the band, and we did Belladonna, and we did our thing. To no great success, but we had a bit of a laugh as we were doing it. But it was just one of those things. You really go into a really big pond.
Yeah. I've always said that's why I live in a small town called Langebaan on the west coast of South Africa. It's sometimes better to be a big fish in a small pond than So when we got to London, it was exactly the same experience. I mean, I remember we played at the Borderline, which was fucking one of the most. I mean, any band that's got any weight has played at the Borderline, and it's one of the most classic clubs in.
I played downstairs, I played.
Yeah, fucking amazing place. But you know, if it wasn't for the fact that we were put onto the tail end of some other bigger bands, like at that time, nobody knew who the fuck VOD was at that time. That's why I'm asking this question: is when you guys packed up your bags and said, "Nah, fuck, okay, cool, we all fucking off to the UK." I mean, where did you start, bro? Like you had to all go get jobs and then get little pub gigs on weekends, sort of stuff, and it must have been bloody tough.
That's basically what you think you believe in. You look at the Kerrangs on. You go to Estoril Bookshop on the weekends in Hillbrow, and you go and look through the magazines, and you see all these gigs at the Marquee and Astoria and whatever, and you think that's what you aspire to. That's if you're a musician and you enjoy doing that sort of stuff, that's what you want to do. But the bigger picture is it doesn't happen that way. When you go over there,
was it good? Was it what was those two big mags in London at that time? Was the Melody Maker, and there was another one that would have all. It was like they would have all the flipping gigs and Melody Maker and some other big one. Yeah, I can't remember the name now.
But we sort of digressed a little bit here, and it's basically what you sort of thought about when you're in South Africa. Where do you go, and how do you progress from where you are in South Africa to what you want to achieve? And it's quite difficult.
Did you guys make the decision individually or as a band to leave ZA?
Well, South Africa, I left on my own, so everyone else stayed behind, and that's why they did that. And Gary tried to go with the Razor. So we all sort of made our decisions. Gary, take over.
Yeah, I mean, with Razor, that was actually the reason the band split, because Vince and I wanted to go over to the UK, and Johnny and Tom didn't. So that was why Razor split.
But Gary, what was so who made the decision for Razor to go to UK? I mean, was it the joint band decision, or was it like one person's decision? Like,
well, as I said, it was Vince, the drummer, and myself wanted to go. And the two guitar players, Johnny and Tom, didn't want to go, so they stayed. We went. That was the end of the band,
Sorry, guys. 8 minutes.
Which was that was the same with Tyrants. We had the same thing. I was going to go, and the rest of the guys didn't. We actually haven't mentioned old Dio here. Duarte.
Oh yeah.
Dos Santos,
Dio Santos, he's
drummer.
Future interview.
A great guy. So he should have been on here today. He was in Tyrant. He was in Lynx.
He will be on.
He's not here today.
Difficult thing to do when you're dealing with 4 or 5 members of a band. I remember when Ragnarok split up in 1988. Me and Sash decided we were going to go to Belgium and carry on the band over there. And when I got there, I couldn't get a work visa or anything. So at that point, I was the drummer. So when Sash used to go to work, there wasn't a drum kit, and he had his guitars in his room, and that's what I ended up changing over onto guitar, because there was no drums, and I was stuck in this fucking house for 3 months. There's nothing to do. So I changed one of his guitars to left hand, and then that's how I became the guitar player.
Yeah.
And then later on in Two Dogs Funking, we actually got offered a tour in London, like the big dream come true. We got this tour for you, and you're going to play London, you're going to go play around Europe and everything. And at that point, I was working for Telkom.
Yeah.
And I actually resigned from my job. This was in like 1993 or 4, I think. Resigned from my job, and we were all ready to kick off for the tour, and it fell through. So there I was with no job anymore. So I just ended up going overseas anyway.
Yeah.
And starting bands overseas, Mouthful of Flies and all sorts of other stuff. And it's like Chris says, man, it's basically like starting over again.
It is, yeah. But that's a little later on. But, Gary came back, and, I lost touch with Gary for so many years. And, God, what do you do, Gary? After 30, 40 years nearly.
That's it.
Connect, and we connect, and we do this, and it's quite amazing. So it's quite good that you guys are bringing. I mean, I've seen Gary a couple of years, but it's nice to see Stretch and Vincent and all these guys who were there from the beginning. Obviously Mark Vass has gone back to bed. He's tired.
No, he's
Let him go.
He's gone.
So Gary, you went over to the UK, and then it didn't work out, and you came back to ZA. Is that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And how did you find when you came back to ZA? You started all over again, or was it just reconnect? And
Chris and Nipper were putting together Unchained then, and they were looking for a vocalist. So they asked me to come in just as a front man, and I said, "Cool." No, I was into doing it. So just did it. Yeah.
Remember the guy Dave Hussey we got?
Yeah, Dave Hussey.
He was a great
drums, Chris. Who was on drums? I don't remember.
A guy called Bruce McCullum, I think.
Okay, yeah. You're right.
I think he worked at a chicken shop, and we got free chickens. Yeah.
not a Fontana chicken or something. Whatever.
But unfortunately not. We were lovely for
We were 2 minutes.
Okay, so it was Unchained, then Vigilante, then Pentagon. Yeah. Then I played in Stretch's band before he went to LA. And then I basically stopped playing for probably 20 years. And then hooked up again with my old friend Tony.
Yeah.
And since then, we've just, it's just the two of us. We get in the studio, write and record shit. Yeah. It's some of it's metal, some of it's different stuff. We kind of don't restrict ourselves by genre. And that's what we did now. And then on the latest album, I got Stretch playing on a couple of tracks, which I'll share with you guys when it's done. And that's it. That's what I'm doing.
Points, man.
Happy to do it. Yeah. Chris will be as well.
See you later.
Take it easy, good
boys.
Take it easy, Gary.
All right,
thanks for joining in.
Love you guys, man.
Hey, thanks, Dean. Thanks for doing it.
Hey, love you, Gary. See you later.
Thanks.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, man.
Feeling kind of lonely, feeling kind of fine. I'm looking for some trouble, get myself tonight. Waiting at the station, waiting for the train. I'm looking for a good time, be with you again. See you later, see you later, see you later, see you think about